Today I'm going to be talking about how to make simple but perfect melodies in Photo Studio 20. There are 3 tips in particular I want to talk about. The first tip is using a blueprint for your melody. The second tip is using a scale to find the emotion of your melody. And the third tip is EQing each individual sound in your melody. So obviously I'm going to start with the first tip, using a blueprint to make your melody. So I have this piano melody already laid down. This is a good melody, but this is not the melody I'm going to end up using in my actual beat. I have 2 other Omnisphere sounds already loaded up. I have a Rode, and I have some other generic sound. Those are the sounds that are going to be in the actual melody. Those are the sounds I'm going to use in the beat. The piano is going to serve as a blueprint. There's 2 things I can do here. I can either copy this piano melody directly into one of these 2 sounds, which sounds like this. To me, that sounds pretty good. I like that a lot. That's a generic Rode sound, and it works very well with this melody. Or the other thing I could do is I could mix the 2 sounds and make their own melody. Like, for example, I could have this other sound in Omnisphere make up the top notes, just the main melody. Then the Rode could be the chords and bass notes. There's a pretty vast variety of combinations I could do with this. I could bring other sounds in if I want. That's not the point. The point is, it's very easy and it saves you a lot of time. If you lay down just a generic melody in a piano, just as a default, just as a blueprint, just as something to go off of. And then what you can do is you can take the same sound and copy it into other sounds. You can copy certain parts of it into other sounds. You can mix it like I just did here. You can do whatever you want. See, I could take this Rode, for example, right? From scratch, I can make a melody with this very easily. I've done it before. It's not hard to do particularly, but it saves me a lot of time if I just make a melody. The bass notes, the chords, the high notes, just everything, just a vast melody in a piano VST. And I keep it there, but I don't use that in the beat. I use that as a blueprint. And then with other sounds, what I do is I copy parts of that first melody into the other sounds. Or like I already showed you, I can just copy the entire thing into one sound. It doesn't matter what combination you do. It doesn't matter what sounds you apply this melody to. The point is, if you have 2 options, you can either make a melody from scratch using a generic sound in Omnisphere, or you can make a melody in a piano first, which is very easy to do, then just copy that into the sounds, and you can use that piano melody as a blueprint for your melody. Overall, it'll just save you a lot of time and effort if you make a melody in a piano VST first, any VST. It can be FL Keys, which is what most people use, Keystone Classic, which is what I use, or Keyscape, whatever you want. It can be any melody. Just make a simple piano melody, a realistic sounding piano melody, and then just copy that into other sounds. Copy it into a Rode, copy it into whatever. For me, and I think for most people, it's easier to make a melody in a piano than it is in any other instrument. It just saves you a lot of time if you use a piano VST. Lay down a simple melody, then use that melody as a blueprint for the rest of your melody. And you copy other sounds into it. You mix sounds with it. You layer sounds with it if you want. It's a very easy trick that'll help you be very creative and quick with your melody making. So now for the second tip. Use a scale to find your emotion. I'm going to show you what I mean by this. I see a lot of producers don't use scales, they just kind of freestyle it. And if you're extremely experienced, that's not a bad idea. You can do it easily, but if you are just starting off, or if you are experienced and you want to save time, finding the right scale, the right key to play your melody in, and using it here in the piano roll like I have done, saves you so much time. And it makes you sound so much more professional across the board, without real exception. You shouldn't just choose any random scale. You can see FL Studio 20 has a lot of scales already in the software. You shouldn't just choose one and apply melody to it. You should do research into what scales have what emotion. I've done so much time just on this alone. I've spent so much time over my, lifetime doing this. Just learning scales and learning what has what emotion and what has what vibe and how you use the scales to make an emotion out of it. The one thing I could recommend with using a scale, first of all, this is very important. You should find out what kind of emotion you want. Do you want it emotional, angry, happy, sad, depressed, whatever? Just find an emotion and decide what emotion you want before you even make it. Before you make the piano melody or any melody, find what emotion you want initially, and then do the research that is required to find out what scales best embody that emotion, that vibe, that feeling that you want. And I can guarantee you, one of these scales has the emotion you want. They have the vibe you want. They have the feel you want. And just use it that way. Again, if you're extremely experienced and you know what you're doing and you really understand and you have a lot of time to waste, I guess, you can just freestyle it. Don't use a scale. Use all the keys and just decide what you want as you go along. That'll work. I've never done that though. I've always used a scale because scales just make it easier. As long as you know what vibe you want, as long as you do the research necessary to find out what scales capture that vibe the best, it's very easy to pick a scale, play your melody in that scale, and it just overall across the board saves you time without real exception. If you do the research required and you understand what's what, this is a tip that you're going to want to capitalize on. Like for example, with this melody, I knew roughly what I wanted. I kind of wanted a melancholic, sad, nostalgic sort of vibe, that sort of a feel. I wanted that sort of emotion. I did some research, and D major is a very good scale for that. I'm relatively experienced, so I already kind of know what scales are what. I kind of have just a default scale I can go to if I want an emotion, but this time I tried it differently. I did research and I looked into it. D major is very good for this. It captured this vibe very well, and I think overall it did a pretty good job of that. So this is a tip. If you want to improve your melody game, this is a tip I think you need to have. You need to have this one. Again, if you're really, really, really experienced, you don't need it. But even if you are experienced, I think it just saves you so much time. Just so much time across the board. If you just figure out beforehand what emotion you want, what feeling you want, what vibe you want, what point are you trying to get across through your music, and then you do the research required to find out what scale best embodies that point, that emotion, and that vibe. Then you apply it here. Again, FL Studio, they have so many. Like any scale you want, it's in here. And just apply it here. Put it in like the kick or the snare or whatever, something you're not going to use. Mute it and just use the ghost notes to guide your melody, your piano melody. And then, like I said in the first tip, copy that into another sound. So using a scale is something that will save you a lot of time. It'll make you sound more professional. And just overall, it is a tip that will make you a better producer. And I recommend strongly that you use it. Now for the third and final tip. EQ each individual sound. So for this tip, I'm going to have two different sounds making up the melody because that kind of makes it easier to show you what I'm going to show you. For the Rode, I'm just going to have the chords and the bass notes, and I'm going to play that. And then for the top notes, I'm going to have this other sound. I don't really know what the sound is, but it's from Atmosphere, so it's good. See, now that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Okay, that's a decent melody right there. But, as you can see in the master channel EQ, it is a little bit muddy. It's a little muddy. It's all just kind of there at the same time. This two sounds just kind of overlapping each other. It's not bad, but right now it's a little bit sloppy. It's a little bit unclean. And I think there's one thing we can do to fix that. We can EQ each individual sound appropriately. Let me show you what I mean. So I'll go to the Rode first. This is the EQ for the Rode. Okay, you saw it. This is the EQ for the top notes. What I'm going to do for the top notes, I'm just going to EQ out most of the bottom. Just leave just the extremely high upper end sounds. And for the Rode, I'm going to take out most of the highs. Just make room for the more bassy, low to mid range. And now, let's listen to it. To me, that sounds better. Music is subjective, of course. So to me, what sounds good might not sound good to you. But to me, that sounds better. I feel like the EQ is one of those tools that people just don't utilize properly. When people make a melody, I'll see producers usually they'll just take out the low ends and make them for the 808, and that's really about it. You know, and that if that's what you want to do, good for you. But in my experience, one of the things I've noticed works very well for a wide variety of melody is that if you just EQ each individual sound appropriately, and you just kind of give them their own room. What I do is I look at the master channel and I just kind of craft it in a way to how every sound has their own spot. Every sound has their own place. It's not muddy. They're not overlapping. Every sound's in their own place. If there's a top melody, if there's a top set of notes, they're in the high to mid range. If there's a low set of notes, they're in the bass range. I feel like most producers don't do stuff like that. They'll usually just cut out the low ends, make room for the 808, and that's it. And again, music is subjective. If that's what you like, go for it. But I feel like there is so much potential with EQ. This is a very, very, very effective tool. I use it all the time in ways most producers don't. To me, using the EQ properly and just kind of cutting out each sound into their own little section and making sure they don't overlap and it's not muddy and everything's efficient. It makes the melody overall and really the beat overall sound more clean, sound more professional, sound more high grade. This is a very good tip, and it's something I think more producers should do. And I think if you this takes a lot of practice though, because every sound is different, every melody is different. This is just 2 sounds. I've done some melodies with like 5 sounds, okay? And it can be used to make your melody sound just across the board more professional and better. Or just at the end of the day, after you get that skill down, your melodies will sound more clean and more professional. I can guarantee it. So that concludes all 3 tips on how to improve and to perfect your melody game overall. I'm going to put some drums over this and I'm going to let you hear the final result. But first I just want to say thanks for watching. If you like this video, leave a like. If you have something to say, comment. Any engagement is very much appreciated. So thank you for watching, and here's the final beat.
Extraordinary.